As many of you know, last year in June of 2025, I made the jump from legacy mainstream media, as it is called, what was actually then called MSNBC, where I had a show. And I made the jump to independent media, where I have been, and I've been here at the Katie Fang News Channel on YouTube. I've been on Substack, and I've been pretty much everywhere I need to be to, as I say, meet the urgency of the moment with the urgency of the message. And part of what I do is speak bluntly, transparently, and plainly to be able to underscore the importance of what is at stake right now and what we need to be doing, especially in the media, to understand the issues and to make sure that we are prepared to fight to the bitter end for democracy. So when I watch what I have watched serially being committed by convicted felon Donald Trump, when I watch the attacks and very much directed towards female members of the media, it's not only disgusting to watch this fat fuck called Donald Trump think that he can be a patronizing, misogynistic pig towards females and female reporters, but it's equally as disgusting to me that none other members of the media are stepping up to defend their colleagues. I have said on other platforms that I believe that other members of the media shouldn't go to pressers, shouldn't show up at the White House press briefing room, shouldn't give any oxygen to the lies that are being spewed by Trump. But I also have a problem with the idea that when you are there, that there is not an immediate correction that is done to stop the misogyny, to stop the slurs, to stop the criticism, to stop the nastiness that is coming from the White House. I don't have to say that allowing it to sit there like a dirty ass fart in the room gives it legitimacy. When this SOB who is trespassing in the people's house deserves none. The latest example was Trump attacking CNN's Caitlin Collins yesterday when she challenged him, appropriately so, on the lack of transparency in this latest dump of documents from the DOJ, because that's what it is, right, people? I could call it elegantly a tranche that was released, but it's really the DOJ just dumping stuff, hoping that we don't actually go through it and find all of the smoking guns. One. And two, Caitlin really pressed to say, don't you think the victims and survivors of Epstein, Maxwell, and others deserve justice? Check out this exchange because I want you to hear the entirety of it.
On the Epstein Files, you talked about Democrats who were in there. Elon Musk was also in there, and so was your Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and correspondence that he had with him. Did you read those new files that were published by the Department of Justice?
I have a lot of things I'm doing, a lot of things I'm doing. I don't know. You mentioned two names. I'm sure they're fine. Otherwise, it would have been major headlines.
A lot of women who are survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more transparent?
The fact that they thought they released too much. I heard that, and you tell me something else. I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Now that nothing came out about me, other than there was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
But what would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about. What did you say?
What would you say to the survivors who feel like they haven't gotten justice?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. She's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face.
I'm asking you about survivors.
You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you.
These are survivors of a sexual abuser.
Let me get this straight. Trump thinks it's time for the country to move on from the Epstein Files. He thinks it's some type of conspiracy being pushed by Jeffrey Epstein from beyond the grave with the help of others. He then tells Caitlin Collins, "You are the worst reporter." And then in this disgusting, patronizing way, tells her that she doesn't smile enough. Caitlin Collins smiles plenty, but really knows when it is appropriate. And when talking about the victimization of little girls who are sex trafficked and sexually abused, again, it is appropriate not to be cracking a grin. But Trump wants to tell Caitlin Collins, you know why you're not smiling? It's because you know you're not telling the truth. So it's bad enough that Trump wants to berate Caitlin Collins, but then he wants to tell her that she's a liar. And the silence was fucking deafening in that room because nobody stepped up and said, that is a lie. You could even call him Mr. President if you really think he deserved the honorific. But no one, not a single colleague of Caitlin Collins, opened their mouths right then and there and said, she's not a liar, Mr. President, and it's not fair for you to do that. I mean, talk about saving your own asses for access to what? Access to even more lies? But isn't it remarkable? It's the Epstein stuff that really triggers Donald Trump, does it not? It's the Epstein inquiries that really triggers him. We see him do it in his Truth Social post. We see him do it in the way that he reacts. He wants to blame everyone else. He says it's Democratic hoax. He says it's all this other stuff, but we all know that that's a lie. It's all a lie. But don't take my word for it. You want another example of Donald Trump getting triggered by a female reporter asking about the Epstein Files? Take a listen to this exchange with ABC News' Mary Bruce. This took place in the Oval, and Donald Trump is sitting there, proud as fuck, next to the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who has been alleged to have been involved in the murder of Washington Post reporter and author Jamal Khashoggi. Take a listen to it.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein Files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter.
It was a really simple question, was it not, that Mary Bruce asked Donald Trump? She's like, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein Files? Why not just release them? And instead of answering the question directly, Trump, in typical fashion, says some word salad and tries to obfuscate and change the topic. He calls Mary Bruce a terrible reporter and a terrible person. He says, what an insubordinate and terrible question. That is not even fucking English, people. An insubordinate question? Look, he clearly didn't want to answer questions back in November of 2025 about the Epstein Files. He didn't want to even come close to addressing the fact that it's going to take a law passed by Congress to be able to get the Epstein Files out. Why? Because once again, he lets the cat out of the bag, right? Because he knows that if his name isn't redacted and removed from all of the files, and he knows that if we see the entirety of it without the bullshit DOJ redactions, that we're going to know the truth about Trump's dirty culpability when it comes to Epstein, Maxwell, and others. There's a pattern here. Caitlin Collins, Mary Bruce, and hey, did you forget this exchange between felon Trump and Catherine Lucy of Bloomberg News on Air Force One, when Catherine had the audacity to ask Trump about the Epstein Files?
Sir, if there's nothing incriminating in the files, sir, why are you not saying this?
Quiet, piggy. And yet, again, in that exchange, no one stepping up to be able to defend Catherine Lucy being called a piggy by the ostensible free leader of the free world, right? No corrections done, no attempts to make that right, no attempts to do anything to curb the churlish and disgusting behavior of Donald Trump. Same thing happened with Mary Bruce. Did you hear anybody pipe up then? No. No one piped up for Caitlin Collins. It's a horrific pattern. But again, the cat out of the bag. What a tell. Donald Trump would fucking suck at playing poker, wouldn't he? Because it's so obvious. All you have to do is ask him about the Epstein Files and he lose his fucking shit. Because he knows. He knows that there is guilt beyond our own imaginations here on his part. And he doesn't want us to know. But he lets it all out, right? Because he can't control himself. Now, look, the next example may not deal with the Epstein Files per se, but this exchange with Nancy Cordes from CBS News is yet another example of Trump being piggish, misogynistic, and disgusting.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person.
Trump, quite possibly the dumbest person to walk the face of the earth, has the nerve to ask Nancy Cordes, quote, "Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person?" Why is he being such an asshole? It's because he doesn't like the question, because she actually challenged Trump with the truth, right? She said, this person was vetted. This shooter was vetted by your own administration. Why are you blaming the Biden administration? And it's such a good question. But Trump can't handle it. He can't handle the truth. He can't handle the good questions. He can't handle being challenged. And he definitely cannot handle being challenged by a woman. Now, these are just 4 examples, and pretty recent, right, that I wanted to highlight for you. But there's a few takeaways that I want to share with you. The obvious ones, again, is the fact that Trump is triggered by the Epstein Files. Trump is triggered by any questioning, any comments about the Epstein Files, because he knows that if there was ever an Achilles heel for him in every respect, it's the Epstein Files. That's why he has been so desperate to use his law lackeys like Pamela Joe and like Todd Blanche to run interference and to keep these files from seeing the light of day. We also know that Trump wants to feel like he's in control, that he controls the information flow, that he controls the data points that are being shared. But I have to go back to the beginning of this episode when I asked, rhetorically or maybe not, for those of you that are tuning in and listening to this episode that are members of the media that have access to Trump, because let's be frank, he's not sitting down with me. J.D. Vance and others won't sit down with me. In fact, there was an understanding in Trump world when I was at MSNBC that my show and Nicole Wallace's show, that we were persona non grata with the Trump team, because they knew that if any member of Trump's orbit sat down with us, that we would vigorously question and cross-examine them. But again, they're not going to sit down with me. And because they're not going to sit down with me, but they are going to field questions from members of legacy media. 1, why isn't any member of legacy media not picking up the mantle or taking the baton from Caitlin Collins and asking the same damn question that either goes unanswered or is answered with an insult by Trump? What do you lose? These are good questions that are being posed by these female journalists. And because they're good questions that are being posed by these female journalists, they deserve answers, right? They deserve to be answered. Americans deserve the answers. So why not say, Mr. President, I notice you did not answer this question that was posed by Caitlin Collins. I asked the same question, especially a male member of the media, because he does save his vitriol mainly for the female reporters, right? Number two, why bother showing up at all? We don't ever get an honest answer from this administration, either from Caroline Leavitt to Donald Trump to any others, right? So why even bother showing up in the first place? You think we lose something when it comes to the information flow or the value of the information that is being spewed by this administration because only Laura Loomer gets it? Spare me, okay? There is something to be said about breaking traditions that no longer serve us well. And one of these traditions is trying to suck ass with an administration, especially one like Trump's. What's the point? There is no point. And if the only thing that creates is this grandstanding moment for convicted felon Donald Trump to say horrible things to female reporters especially, then why fucking bother? I personally, as an American, do not need another example of Trump's incompetence, stupidity, his lack of mental acuity, his evidence of sundowning and dementia, senility. I don't need any more reminders, people. I got it. And really, I don't think that it helps us to have to sift through and wade through the misinformation and disinformation and lies as a consumer of media and the news. It's not news anymore, right? What's being said is no longer the news. The news is the disgusting asshole shit he says, right? And then to add insult to injury, it's worth mentioning, right? The arrest and now the persecution of Don Lemon and Georgia Fort when they were just simply doing their jobs as members of the Fourth Estate and as members of independent media reporting on something that was occurring. I appreciate you giving me the privilege to share this information with you and to share my thoughts. And I suspect that I am not alone in these. I think that we need to be honest about the value of mainstream media moving forward. Because if this is all we're getting, and this is not because I'm not in that space anymore. This is not because I'm in independent media now. It's because I care. I care about where our world is going. And I don't want the path of our country to be littered by lies that are being spread by our mainstream media because they feel like it's their obligation because that's all they've ever known. Well, how about just fucking saying no? And how about finding your balls, people? Yeah, you, the members of the mainstream media that aren't stepping up to defend your fucking colleagues. Because with friends like this, who needs enemies? Katie Fang here. We launched the Katie Fang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.